Dogen says it like this. He says, that you go forward and experience myriad things is delusion. That's our general orientation. That we go forward into the world and experience this and this. I'm going to check this out now. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to meet that person. He says that way of perceiving the world is a form of delusion. It's a way of separating the self. I'm here, you're there. I'm going to meet somebody that I don't know, or I'm going to do something that I haven't done, or I'm going to repeat something that I've done. Then Dogen says that the myriad things go forth and realize themselves is enlightenment. Right? This is this man we are celebrating today, his birthday. That the myriad things go forth and realize themselves is enlightenment. It's a different orientation. It's a different orientation to the world. That we are not these individual. We have this individual self, and yes, we do go forward and experience myriad things. Yet there's another aspect of the self that, from the viewpoint of enlightenment, we are not this individual, isolated self meeting all kinds of people and things. Rather, the whole universe is the self. That I'm talking to myself here. Right? I'm not talking to somebody new. I'm talking to myself. Right? We have two eyes, right? We all have two eyes. We share these two eyes. Isn't that interesting? We have a nose. I've got a nose. I've got one nose, not two. I've got two ears. And I got one mouth, right? I've got two hands. And Dogen said when he come back from Japan, they asked him, well, what did you bring back with you from Japan after your training in the temples there? This is in the 13th century. In China, thank you. What did you come back with? That teacher came back from these great sutras. This teacher came back with these esoteric teachings. What do you got for us? Dogen's teaching was, my nose is vertical and my eyes are horizontal. Like, well, I knew that. That's it. That's what you got. But we don't really see it. We don't really see it. And how close we are connected with the animals too, right? They got two eyes, and they're both the same size. There's a song there. There's a Sesame Street song teaching children about eyes. I got two eyes, and they're both the same size. Isn't that wonderful? What if one eye was bigger than the other? But they're not. They're not. This is Zen, right? There's no miracles except that you see that you're symbolic of the nose is vertical, goes up and down. It doesn't go sideways. Wouldn't that be strange if your nose went that way? Your ear was on top of your head. It's not. It's right here. It happens to be right here. And if we look at animals, they have the same morphology. If you look at a bat, have you ever seen a bat skeleton? It almost looks human. I mean, it's amazing. We went to the Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C., and we saw these bat skeletons. And they looked, I mean, the only difference was the fingers were really long. I mean, but yet, if you look at it, you think, oh, that's a bat. Even a rat, right? The ears are on the side of the head, the nose, the eyes here. Wow. Interesting. Isn't that interesting? That's what we want to cultivate. Interest in that ordinary. The ordinary is the profane. That's what we say in Zen. The ordinary is the profane. And we cultivate an interest and curiosity in the ordinary. The sun is shining. Oh, wasn't that wonderful? Especially when it's so cold out. Right? And the cold, actually, it's embracing. We get so hot, stuffy rooms, and go out and get the fresh air. You feel good. Get that good, fresh oxygen. All right. So, to come back here, I want to touch on this. When I was studying my last year in college, I had this opportunity to study a interreligious dialogue that took place in the 1970s. My question was like, if all these religions are really good for the most part, they're saying that basically take care of the environment, take care of the elderly, take care of children, take care of the orphan, right? Serve. They're all saying the same thing. Why are there wars going on in the name of religion? You know? And so that was my guiding question. And it led to the study of something called interreligious dialogue or interfaith dialogue, and how different religions have kind of different cultures come together to have conversations. And actually, I was surprised to find that this has been happening for hundreds of years. Interreligious dialogue. It's not a new thing. And so there was actually a dialogue that took place in the 1970s, not too far from here, on the Rosebud Reservation in was it South Dakota? Yeah, South Dakota, between Lakota medicine people and Jesuit missionaries. And it took place over a 3-year period where they would meet periodically, once a week or once every couple of weeks, and there was over 1,000 pages of minutes that my professor, who was who studied extensively with Indigenous people and was even himself an adopted member of a particular tribe, shared with me these minutes of the meetings. And it was a fascinating study. And I was 21 and reading through all this stuff as a young person and trying to understand. And he said, look at how, he pointed out, he said to me, what I want you to do with these minutes is find out where all the places where Indigenous people, how they talk about the environment, how they talk about the natural world. That's what I want you to really focus on. And that's what I did. I looked through and I thought, oh wow, look at how they think about the natural world. There's something here that I can learn from, and that I think we, coming from a Western society, Western-based society, can learn from Indigenous people. And there's a whole history there that is we can go into, but I just want to focus here right now on what we can learn, what we can learn from Indigenous peoples. And one of the things that I found, and then my teacher also pointed out, was look at how they're talking about the mountains and the animals, and how their prayers are said, because they compared the prayers of the Lakota to the prayers of the missionaries. And one Lakota medicine person was quite critical. He said, when we pray this way. We're talking to animals. And he even made reference to praying over the mountains or through the mountains, sending his prayers through the mountains. Right? And this is a common kind of practice amongst Indigenous peoples around the world. It's not just for Lakota, but also Haiti, the indigenous religion there, the voodoo, is a practice. It's an indigenous way of seeing the environment. And you can find this if you continue to study Indigenous peoples. Now, I don't want to make this into a, what's the word I'm thinking of? We appropriate things that maybe we shouldn't be, or we glamorize these kinds of practices, make them seem like somehow extraordinary. So we need to be careful about doing that, because remember, the ordinary is what's sacred. Not that the extraordinary isn't, but we do this like, oh, that's really cool. Or we think the other way, that's polytheism, or make it a negative, a kind of a negative thing. And we don't really see it for what it is. So when I came across this saying, something resonated with me, and it took me a while to make that connection back to the Lakota, and this idea of praying to animals, praying to the sun or to the moon. But I think there's something very powerful in here that we can ourselves begin to practice. And we can not just learn from indigenous people, but even the teachings within Buddhism have teachings like this. Consider, the Buddha was enlightened in a forest. He sat under a tree. The tree, if it wasn't for that tree, there wouldn't be any enlightenment. Mahakashapa, his first disciple, right? He was enlightened by a flower. He saw the flower and he smiled. And the Buddha, that moment was a transmission of the Dharma from the Buddha to his student, Mahakashapa. And then there's a story in the 1700s of Ryokan. You know who Ryokan is? A famous Japanese poet. You should read his poetry. It's just, again, full of references to the natural world, the seasons, the rain, all of that. And there's a story about him. He was very, very poor, and he did that intentionally. He had this hut. He called it the 1 pint rice hut, where he said, all I need is 1 pint of rice a day, I'm good. And he would go out and beg for that rice. And sometimes he would come back with flowers in his begging bowl. And one time, a thief came in. A thief came into his hut. He had nothing in there. The thief couldn't find anything, and he was really disappointed. So he started to leave, and Ryokan noticed him. He said, "Wait a minute, don't go. Let me give you my robes. I'll give you my robes." And the thief was just kind of bothered by that. He said, "I can't believe this." And he took them. Didn't really want them, but he took them, and then he ran off. And it was in the middle of the night. The full moon was out there, and Ryokan says, "I wish I could have given him the moon. This is yours. This isn't somebody else's. That moon is your moon. Right? That moon is our moon. This world is our world, and you are the world. Right? I don't want to say that like cliche. You are the world, but you are the world. You are the universe. Right? That's the Buddhism. That's the Buddhism saying. So I want to. I'll close with a poem from a Chinese poet. He says. This is from Su Tong Po. He says, "The sound of the valley stream is itself the vast eternal tongue. Are not the colors of the mountains the pure body? Are not the colors of the mountains the pure body? Since evening, 84,000 verses." This isn't the Dharma talk. You've been listening to the Dharma talk when you're sitting zazen. That's the Dharma talk going. Another day, how could I quote them to others? Good luck. Well, I'll close with my own poem. Humans land on the moon. The earth is a flower. 240,000 miles away. Who in this Milky Way rides the ever-glowing sun? Thank you. So, you guys got questions? Feel free.
For some reason recently I did get into a conversation with the guys down at OCC about the separation from the natural world.
Now, can you say what OCC is?
It's the Omaha Correctional Center.
Omaha Correctional Center, okay.
Yeah. And it has struck me, actually, this coming week, I'm gonna talk more about, for people in prison. There's a serious